access to space. Clearly, you guys have never heard of the acquisition of the universe.
Is that a Black Sabbath album? Because it really should be.
By your time, the world was already well-versed in greed and corruption. For small increases to their own wealth, people in power have and will doom millions of their fellow humans to lives of misery and toil. Reddingfordshire's involvement on the global stage can't exactly be traced, as it seems to be an entity, not of a shared bloodline of a CEO or a venerated old corporate archon, but one of pure capitalism. Corporate takeovers, acquisitions, and buyouts slowly built a machine that spanned every industry imaginable. If you were reading, watching, eating, buying, or even snorting something, it passed through Reddingfordshire's inspection and
even
taxation.
Snorting?
They got you.
What?
Damn, man.
Whatever you were snorting.
That was the one way to stick it to the man, is just to snort everything.
Something. You were like, you know what?
Meals.
Ain't no tax on this.
Yeah.
They controlled the military R&D, and by doing so always had the most advanced weaponry for their security forces. These forces became dispatched on various tactical investment opportunities around the globe, and this action could be said to have started the eventual Red Blue Corp world domination.
Jesus Christ. I hate those bastards already.
Private military operations blur the line between war and crime, as if such a thing ever existed.
Kind of the same thing.
And thus drew the attention of the modern world, as these TOs, tactical investment opportunities, became more and more elaborate and more violent. It became clear that in addition to the run-of-the-mill boring old wars that we've been used to, a cool shadow war was being waged between very well-funded opponents.
Sweet.
The domination of Reddingfordshire influence in the West made them blind to a growing opposition in the East. With the integration of the underworld and political corporate influence in Japan, a different sort of power was being created, one that required no velvet glove to conceal its iron fists. Underworld crimes in Asia and Russia seemed to cool in the early 2050s, but within 5 years it was revealed that the construction of the World's Bridge, a concrete superhighway that was going to connect Beijing to Pyongyang to Tokyo, was actually the work of a conglomerate of Japanese, Korean, and Chinese criminal organizations.
That's a long bridge, too.
Wow.
Right? Scary. I wouldn't. Who'd do that? The corresponding governments seemed to take no measures to hide the backing coordination of this tremendous effort by what Western media was calling mafia-style gangs. The Yakuza have been integral parts of city planning and management for many years in Japan, much to the boon of its citizens. In March of 2011, an earthquake in Japan prompted the immediate funneling of food aid and supplies from Yakuza storehouses even before the Japanese government could officially respond. With no need for a veil to hide its scarier side, the Japanese, Korean, and Chinese underworld corporation created a vast network of influence that began to seep into Russia and the African nations.
Triad.
Which year was this?
This is currently, but in 2011 there was an earthquake during your time. You guys must have seen that in Japan. That the
Yes,
very
we did.
That was the one
Kaz.
that. Yeah, that was the one that. fucked
Fukushima.
up. Yep.
And
It was bad.
the first responders were Yakuza, quote-unquote, gangsters that were showing up with flatbed trucks full of food, aid, transporting.
Navy.
No, they're just hoping to get
Cajun
nuclear
Navy.
powers. They're just hoping to get, like, superpower. That's the only reason they
You don't know
They're
that.
trying to create a bunch of Spider-Man.
Yep.
Prove it.
Spider-Man.
Bob Spiderman.
It's a Jon Stewart, isn't it? As Reddingfordshire's TO operations began to affect the East operation, the need for a unified board with a central figurehead to deal with these problems became clear. In a ceremony conducted at sea, Takanori Blushinama had his left pinky finger severed, one knuckle bone at a time, by the bosses of the other two gangs.
Damn.
With that grisly ritual complete, a new superpower was born.
Grizzly.
It's a grisly ritual, man.
Yep.
Gross.
Russian operatives quickly took note of the growing power their neighbors to the south were gathering, and after a few unsuccessful assassination attempts, the leader of the KGB, Gludimir Spankarov,
What?
Wow.
decided to request
One more time.
Gludimir Spankarov decided to request entry onto the governing board of the Blushima Investment Protectorate. With the combined might of Russia, Blushima grew to control every aspect of Asian life. Hospitals, prison, defense budgets, and indeed anything you can think of had a specific Blushinama boss responding with corresponding team members to make sure everything was going smoothly.
Ugh.
This dynamic played out until the unmasking, as described by BTMD, Bubbling Tank Man Daddy.
Boom.
After those events, a series of brutal wars broke out and continued to rage until the Bohai Bay incident, which triggered an even more erratic weather patterns. The loss of life and property due to the climate change precipitated a thought in some of the execs at Reddingfordshire and at Blushinama. If they could build a brief truce, then perhaps these problems could be tackled together. The peace talks led to warming of relations and eventually the Great Merger.
Well, that doesn't look...
With no one left to fight, the security forces and TO units grew restless, and infighting and insubordination was common. The execs feared mutiny or worse, so they set the security forces to the task of creating the vast stadiums or war plazas where crowds could come to watch soldiers use live ammunition in a war for points on a scoreboard.
Oh.
Wow.
With the military arm relatively steady, the Red Blue execs set their eyes on the stars. The construction and operation of the space elevator was a marvel of industry. Hundreds of feet a day it climbed. Aided by drone builders and the failed Red Blue Army recruits, reports from the area described it as an unearthly large bamboo tree growing ceaselessly up and throwing off a cacophonous grinding noise as it climbed.
So
That seems way horrible.
So this is just like constantly getting bigger and bigger every day.
It's not dangerous at all.
No.
I mean, structurally, that just seems like a horrible idea to have something just going straight up.
Now tell me, do you really want to love me forever?
A mixtape going on?
How long?
While no one other than the execs of Red Blue Corporation have been on the elevator, it is said that they've used their vast resources and slave labor to achieve a veritable interplanetary society between the solid moons and planets that surround our sun. While this is uncorroborated, there have been reports of strange glowing rocks and even artifacts being seen descending the elevator late at night. While such a marvel makes the reaches of space closer than ever, it is bittersweet to realize that we live in a world where no one can hope to duplicate or recreate that access to the final frontier. Space and everything beyond is now firmly in the grasp of the Red Blue Corporation.
All right, you've clarified the signal.
Oh,
Time to go.
Oh.
Where is she?
Like clarified butter? I don't. What does that mean?
Oh,
Like,
no.
what's the
Oh,
signal?
my God. Look.